Welcome back to Meet Me at the Grizz. I'm Ken Clough. This podcast is about scouting, summer camp, and the experiences that stay with us long after the weekends. It's about what happens out on the trails, in the campsites, around the campfire, and often in the quiet moments that don't make it into their schedule. Today's episode is a reflective one. It's not about planning timelines or packing lists. It's not about merit badges or program schedules. It's about something deeper. It's about how a campsite becomes more than a place to sleep, how traditions create comfort and connection, how service builds ownership, and how, over time, scouts leave their imprint on camp, at the very same time camp is leaving its imprint on them. This story is about fellowship, preparation, and legacy. Camp doesn't start on Sunday. When people think about summer camp, they usually picture arrival day, cars pulling in, gear being unloaded, scouts checking in, leaders figuring out where everything goes, that moment when the week officially begins. But for our troop, camp really didn't start on Sunday afternoon. Camp started weeks earlier. It started with service days. We would arrive at camp before the season officially opened, when the paths were quiet and the buildings were still locked up from the winter. There were no campers yet, no program areas running, just work to be done. Cleaning campsites, raking leaves, scout dads weed-whacking trails, opening buildings, painting where help was needed, pitching in wherever camp staff said it would make a difference. At the time, it just felt like something we did. Looking back now, I realize how important those days were, because when scouts help prepare a place, they don't just show up for it later. They arrive already invested. Preparation builds connection. There's something powerful about working at a place before you use it. When scouts cleaned a campsite they would live in later, something shifted. When they opened buildings they would later walk through every day, it changed how they treated them. When they saw how much effort it took to get camp ready, they understood that camp doesn't just magically appear. Camp exists because people care enough to prepare it. That lesson matters. It teaches scouts that places have value because people invest in them. That communities don't function automatically. They function because people show up. That responsibility isn't assigned, it's earned. Those service days built quite a sense of pride. Camp felt familiar before the week ever began. Ownership changes behavior. Once scouts felt that sense of ownership, everything changed. They didn't need constant reminders to clean up. They didn't shrug when something needed attention. They didn't treat the campsite like a borrowed space. They treated it like it was theirs. And when something belongs to you, you care for it differently. That ownership didn't come from rules or adult supervision. It grew naturally from contribution. Scouts held each other accountable. They corrected things before leaders had to step in. They protected the space they had helped create. Camp stopped being a destination. It became a responsibility and a source of pride. Building something that lasts. One year, our troop took on a project that still stands today. We installed a new flagpole at our campsite. It wasn't flashy, it wasn't complicated, but it mattered. Scouts were involved, leaders guided where needed. When the project was finished, the flagpole became part of the campsite. We used it during our week at camp, but so did every troop that stayed there after us. Different scouts raised the flag. Different leaders stood quietly nearby. Different units made it part of their daily routine. Every time I saw that flagpole being used, I felt something powerful. Not pride in what we had done, but appreciation for what it continued to do. That flagpole became a symbol, a reminder that when you improve camp, you're not just improving it for yourself, you're improving it for everyone who comes after you. Improving camp for everyone. Over time, our service extended beyond our own campsite. We helped open the dining hall. We painted when help was needed. We pitched in on small jobs that made camp function better. None of it was glamorous, but it mattered. Scouts began to understand that camp isn't maintained by magic. It's maintained by people, staff, volunteers, leaders, and scouts who are willing to help. Camp stopped being about something they consumed. It became something they contributed to, and that shift matters. Because when scouts understand that camp belongs to everyone, they treat everyone and everything with more respect. Fellowship begins at the campsite. Ownership naturally led to fellowship. One of our favorite traditions was making Dutch oven donuts at our campsite. We didn't keep it to ourselves. We invited neighboring troops. We invited staff. We welcomed anyone who wandered over, often drawn by the smell before anything else. There was no sign-up sheet, no program schedule, no expectation beyond an open invitation. And people came. Scouts from other troops, staff members on a quick break, leaders stopping to talk. For a while, our campsite became a gathering place. Those moments mattered. They broke down barriers between units. They reminded scouts that staff were people, not just uniforms. They created shared experiences that weren't tied to merit badges or schedules. The donuts weren't the point, although they were very delicious. The fellowship was. Traditions just for the troop. Not all of our traditions were outward-facing. Some of them were just for us. Dutch oven chocolate chip pie one evening, a shared treat at the end of a long day. Wednesday lunch at the campsite, something special made in the middle of the week, a pause from the routine. These moments became anchors. They gave scouts something familiar in a new environment. They provided comfort in the middle of challenge. They strengthened the bonds within the troop. These traditions were passed down. Older scouts taught younger scouts how they worked. New scouts stepped into something that already had meaning. That continuity mattered. It told scouts they belonged. Anticipation is built through contribution. Because scouts help prepare camp and carry traditions forward, anticipation for summer camp grew naturally. Camp wasn't exciting because of what was promised. It was exciting because they were part of it. New scouts arrived curious. Returning scouts arrived confident. Everyone arrived knowing that they had a role. That anticipation didn't come from hype. It came from investment. What adults learn by stepping back. For adults, these experiences taught their own lessons. When we step back, scouts step forward. They learned how to host others. They learned how to take pride in their space. They learned how to contribute without being asked. Our role shifted from directing every moment to supporting what scouts were building, and watching that happen was one of the most rewarding parts of being there. Legacy works both ways. Here's the lesson that took me the longest to fully understand. We were leaving our imprint on camp, but camp was also leaving our imprint on us. The flagpole still stands. The improvements remain. The traditions continue. But the scouts carried something with them too. They learned that service creates belonging, that ownership builds pride, that community just doesn't happen. It's built. Those lessons don't stay at camp. They show up later in life in ways that many never see. A call to action. Be part of something bigger. Before I close, I want to leave you with a simple invitation. If you're listening as a scout leader, a parent, or someone connected to a troop, find a way to help. Help get camp ready. Volunteer for a service day. Clean a campsite. Paint a wall. Help open a building. Pitch in where help is needed. It doesn't have to be a big project. It just has to be meaningful. Because when scouts help prepare camp, they stop seeing it as a place they visit once a year. They begin to see it as a place they belong to. You're just not improving camp for your troop. You're improving camp for everyone who uses it, and for future generations. That's how camps stay strong. A second call to action. Start your own troop traditions. And here's the second invitation. Start your own troop traditions at camp. They don't have to be complicated. They don't have to be expensive. They just have to be consistent. Maybe it's a shared meal. Maybe it's a midweek pause. Maybe it's inviting others in. Traditions help scouts feel comfortable. They create familiarity. They give scouts something to look forward to year after year. Those traditions often become the reason scouts want to come back to camp. More than a campsite. Looking back, we didn't just go to camp year after year. We helped prepare it. We cared for it. We shared it. And in doing so, camp became more than a campsite. It became a place of fellowship, a place of ownership, a place of legacy. The donuts were the point. The service wasn't about recognition. The flagpole wasn't about us. It was about leaving something better than we found it, for everyone who comes next. And while we were leaving our imprint on camp, camp was quietly leaving its imprint on us. Thanks for listening to Meet Me at the Grizz. If this episode sparked a memory or inspired an idea, I hope you'll carry it forward into your own camp experience. Sometimes it only takes one act of service or one simple tradition to make camp feel like home. Until next time, I'm Ken Clough, and I'll meet you at the Grizz.